Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Valeria and this is the Off-Road Range. In the beginning of September, I received a third A-degree burn. I was hospitalized for 3 weeks and then recovered for another 3 weeks before I was able to return to the off-road range. Based on my experience and treatment, based on the materials I studied and the answers of the doctors, I made a video about how burns are classified, how the skin is structured, what measures need to be taken in case of a burn, and what measures are taken to treat burns. Today I'd like to talk about my burn and my treatment. And I'd like to make a note that according to the classification of some countries, I have a third A-degree burn, but according to the classification of another countries, I have a deep second-degree burn. Anyway, such burns are characterized by prolonged treatment and the presence of scars after healing. Of course, my body has changed. I will have scars forever and healing will take about a year. And I'd like to tell you not about what treatment I had, but what I think when I look at my changed body. And I'd like to show you what I have left after my burns. To make the video, I waited for my wounds to heal more or less. However, for some people, these photos and videos will not look aesthetically pleasing. So watching this video is at your discretion, but listening will be useful, in my opinion. I received a thermal burn when I poured 1.2 liters of boiling water from a thermos on myself. I burned the left side of my body, lower belly, private parts and a hip. Luckily, immediately after burning, I had an opportunity to pour very cold water over a burn for a long time. Already at that time, the burnt layers of skin peeled off like layers of an onion. After I called an ambulance, I poured chlorhexidine on the wound, took several ibuprofen tablets and began to get ready for the hospital, because I understood that I had to be hospitalized. Before the doctors arrived, I didn't apply anything at all or touch the burn. Firstly, I didn't know the extent of the damage and the consequences. And secondly, I believe that doctors will assess better the condition of the burn when it is clean, without my intervention or the presence of any ointments or any substances. Almost instantly, I felt a state of shock because blood rushed sharply to the damaged skin and the pressure in the vessels dropped. I was shaken very badly and I couldn't control it or act adequately until the doctors arrived and gave me an analgesic. I was injected with a narcotic painkiller, the kind that is used for third-degree burns. Depending on the severity of the injury, different painkillers are injected. The doctors also removed several layers of burned skin from me once again, used some ointments and made a gauze bandage. At the hospital, doctors removed several more layers of my burned skin and made a new sterile dressing, which I kept until I was discharged from the hospital. This method reduces the likelihood of infection and re-injury, since the wound is closed from external influences. The dressing procedure takes place every day or every other day. While dressing patients, doctors or nurses monitor the rate of healing and treat the burns with iodine solution. It prevents inflammation and infection and dries the wounds on which lymph and a core forms. As I said in another video about burns, different countries use different treatment methods. Depending on the degree of a burn, 3A or 3B, patients were either turned off the bandage or left it until the end of their stay in the hospital. In case of a third A-degree burn, doctors do not tear off the sterile bandage and wait for new, thin, delicate skin to appear under the bandage, under the old injured skin. In the case of a third B-degree burn, the bandage is turned off and not always with anesthesia. Doctors need this in order to see the state of the injury and the rate of regeneration. They need to determine treatment and understand the need for transplantation. I thought that they would rip off the guts of my burns. I stood in the corridor and cried. I didn't want to go for a dressing procedure, although of course I would have gone anyway. Patients told me about cases of wound infection and suppuration. However, they didn't rip off my bandage. My injury didn't require a transplant, since I had some living stem cells left, which under favorable conditions could regenerate the skin by themselves. The goal of my treatment was to wait for new skin under the bandage. While changing the dressing, the doctors looked at the degree of healing, changed the bandages if necessary, and poured copious amounts of iodine solution. And although it stung very much and in the first weeks the tears flowed spontaneously, I was always glad of the dressing, because I was protected from infection, because my skin wasn't torn off, and because I didn't need a transplant. Still, the nurse accidentally tore off a piece of gas from my burn, and now it is still red and very peeling. But there is not necessarily a connection, because my burns can take up to a year to heal, and because this place is a hip band, which is mobile. Although I don't like medications and endured the pain as much as I could, I still had to ask to inject painkillers at night and drink sleeping pills sometimes. But still, more often than not, I preferred not to sleep and read at night rather than take sleeping pills, because they are very addictive. I drank a lot of water. This was expected since my body had intensive recovery. In addition, due to injury, and a burn is an injury, large numbers of cells die and consequently the body becomes intoxicated. In their turn, toxins are removed with water. Considering that my physical activity was very limited these days, the removal of toxins also slowed down. On average, I drank 6-7 liters of water a day, and once I drank 10 liters of water, but after that I started to drink less. Now my water consumption has returned to normal level. By the way, careful physical activity is very important. It speeds up healing greatly. In general, injury doesn't mean you shouldn't move. Vice versa, you should lie down as little as possible if your condition allows it. I only slept on my back for over a month. My legs were constantly numb and my back was sweating at night. I didn't wear underwear or clothes at all for 3 weeks. I only started wearing underwear when I was discharged from the hospital, and still, until I returned to the off-road range, I also tried not to wear underwear. Now I still wear underwear on a bandage. I didn't sit down at all for more than a month and ate lying down. I couldn't sit down completely for 1.5 months, and by the way, it was uncomfortable to go to the toilet. It still hurts to squat fully. Besides, I couldn't imagine that the lower abdominal muscles are so important for laughing, sneezing or blowing your nose, none of which can be done fully due to pain and limited movement. I walked bent over for more than a month, as the wounds and scabs didn't allow me to straighten up. When the wounds began to heal, they began to itch very much, but this is impossible to do because of the bandage and the risk of re-traumatization. So I just waved my hands over the wounds and pretended in the air that I was scratching them. By the way, they still itch as they heal inside. When the skin crusts become very stable, confident and hard, my movements became very limited. I almost couldn't move my leg or walk. But on the same day, I had a dressing procedure, and I was given a special ointment with silver to soften the crust, speed up healing and prevent infection. I smeared the surface of the bandage with this ointment myself, and it penetrated inside the wound. By the way, I washed my hands almost every 5 minutes. I didn't touch anything when I was preparing to treat the wound myself. When the doctors finally removed the bandage, the new skin was very thin. There were scabs all around, and the wound was bleeding again. I cannot post these photos here for aesthetic reasons. I was given a special wound covering. It is hydrophobic but mesh. It doesn't interfere with gas and moisture exchange, and at the same time it doesn't stick to the wound. After that, gauze bandages were reapplied on top of burns, and a special mesh dressing was placed on top. I cleaned the wounds and changed all these dressings and wound coverings every day, but I plan to remove it very soon. I already sleep without any coverings, but only on my back and right side. I took a shower only 3 weeks after receiving the burn. I washed quickly and in cold water, trying not to get the burn wet. Now I can wash myself in regular water, but after a shower the burns turn red, blue and brown. My skin still peels all the time, like a snake's skin. And this may last for several more months. My friends call me burning woman and also onion, since I have flares like onions. And they find it very funny. Of course, it doesn't offend me. They understand the seriousness and they cheer me up. After discharge, I need to apply different ointments to the burn. To some parts of the burn, I apply ointments to prevent hypertrophic scarring and to promote healing. I apply special ointments with collagen and panthenol to other parts of the burn. The use of ointment depends on the degree of damage. I want to express my gratitude to the person who recommended me an ointment for recovery with collagen under my post in the community. I found an analog and I consider it to be of high quality and suitable for recovery. It is very important to disinfect and moisturize the burn constantly, even after the discharge from the hospital. Of course, the burn place still hurts when I touch it or squat, and this will continue for at least for several months more. And complete healing of all tissues will take about a year, since healing of upper layer is far from total recovery of all layers of the skin. Dear viewer, let me interrupt my story and ask your support. I have a small dream. I'd like to reach 10,000 subscribers by Christmas Eve. But the problem is that 97% of people watch my content without subscribing, and this makes my dream extremely difficult. I ask you so much, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications about new videos. And if you like my content, please share your friends with my channel. I talk about my life, my difficulties, about the development of my project, and I give only useful information. I will be grateful for your support. When I realized that I would have scars, I knew for sure that I wouldn't have any complexes or self-doubts due to the change in my appearance. The fact is that I believe that it is impossible not to love the body. And in general, it is quite difficult to have the concept of loving the body. The body is the vessel our soul and consciousness lives in. But at the same time, the body is part of consciousness. The body is a trace of generations, a trace of history. It is a reflection of experience. Both the body and the soul went through history and experience. I could say that the body is just a shell, a membrane, but this shell makes it possible to live, to exist in this world. We have it since our birth by default. We cannot exist without the body. It is integral with our soul, and it doesn't have standards of beauty that society has come up with. There is an animal attitude towards the body, when the body at the animal level is perceived as something for survival, coexistence, procreation, and there is an attitude of the soul towards the body, a connection between the soul and the body as a way and an opportunity of self-realization and creation of something in the time and space we are now. But there are no standards and beauty as those accepted in society we are pressured and forced with. The main tasks of the body are its well-being, the performance of functions, and the implementation of something what is intended, destined, or chosen in this period of time and space. If society hasn't imposed standards on certain things, then there is less likelihood that the person will be biased towards appearance or body's flaws. By the way, I have a video about balanced nutrition, where I once again emphasize that well-being and health are much more important than imposed opinions and exhausting diets. But when I got out of the shower and stood in front of the mirror, I realized that it wouldn't be fair to say that I didn't feel anything at all when instead of my previous clean white body I had spots. Pink, red, purple, blue, brown, gray. After water exposure, they appear especially brightly. The burn may look quite harmless, like a minor allergy or stroke, but even the light pink areas in the water haven't yet healed. I stood, looked at them and realized that it was very unusual for me to see my new appearance. What I felt was definitely not negative emotions, not rejection, not disgust, not dislike, and so on. Instead of that, I felt the irrevocability of events, and that I couldn't think about returning to what was before. It has become an integral part of me, which I cannot help but accept by default, just like the whole body before. But it doesn't have connection with accepting the appearance. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that I can feel negative about my changes. There is another difference. My scars now are a permanent monument to a callous act only I am to blame for, because only my behavior and attitude led to the combination of events that caused me to get burnt. And if not this accident, then my responsibility would sooner or later lead to another accident, but in another circumstances, and its results could have been much more sad. This burn, this accident, is a reminder of my attitude toward myself, which will always show my bad traits. These are the consequences of my mistake that will remain here and will always remind me about it. And it is unpleasant to look at your own stupidity and negligence. This is a reminder that not today but later my attitude could lead to worse consequences and I could lose much more forever. Of course, there are lasers and so on. But I still have the question. If I decide to remove scars, does it mean that I do not accept what I have? It is strange to say about accepting yourself as you are and at the same time to remove a couple of scars because they are ugly. Some kind of correction will not make me a better person. Still, it can give me some physical abilities if I have limitations. And of course, by this, I do not mean that changes in appearance do not lead to social advantages. However, it is important not to cheat on yourself and your priorities, but this is another topic of conversation. For now, I do not have an answer as whether I will remove my scars later. Given that I have returned to work at the off-road range, I understand that my healing may take longer and I am at increased risk for complications. However, my burns are only a small part of what could happen to a person. During my time in hospital, I saw many much more serious cases that required serious treatment and skin grafts, limited mobility and, in overall, changed lifestyle. Dear friends, I told you about my experience and the treatment I had, and I will be glad if you share your story or express your opinion in the comments. By sharing experience, you can help other people. And in the end, I'd like to repeat a brief reminder of what to do in case of burns. Cool the burnt area for at least 10 minutes with running water. Treat with antiseptic and cover with a sterile bandage. If possible, use hydrophobic breathable dressings. Do not pour sour cream, butter, alcohol or other liquids. Do not touch the burn with dirty hands. And your doctor will give you the best recommendations. If the burn is deep or extensive, use the same recommendations, but at the same time, you must urgently call an ambulance. For burn patients, hospitalization time is very critical. I want to express gratitude to all doctors for saving us every day, especially that sometimes it happens due to our carelessness and negligence. I wish you to be healthy and careful. Subscribe to my channel, like, and support me in any possible ways. By the way, I'd like to say that I have Patreon, and for a long-term subscription, I will plant a tree and name it after you. So, if you would like, you can also support me and nature in this way. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Range. Wish you all the best and see you soon.